Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Cloud English Podcast. My name is Luke. It is Friday, June 16th, 2041, and it is great to be here. It's great to have you here. We have a lot of interesting things to talk about, to cover, that I look forward to going over, and, well, let's just get into it. A few things at the top of the show. Number one. What is number one? Oh, well, let me first talk about what we're going to cover, just to give you a general sense, and then there are a few housekeeping things to say, which I will then say. So we're going to be talking today about how to do things in English. I'm going to be going over introductions. Yes, I know you know how to say, "This is my friend Steve," or whatever, but it's not that simple, and there's much more to it, and I find that the part that's important doesn't get much focus, and so that's why we're going to talk about it. And we're going to also be talking about how to, let's say, handle an awkward elevator conversation. If you have to have one, I mean, ideally you don't want to have one. I don't know why people feel like they need to talk in the elevator, but sometimes they do. Lunatics, psychopaths. But if you have to interact in the elevator, in the lift, if you're in the UK, I suppose you would call it a lift. Maybe I wonder if it's called an up and down box anywhere. That would be a good name for it. So we're going to be talking about how to handle that with questions and comments when you're in that situation, when you feel like you need to say something. And I will also teach you how to initiate a conversation if you're that type of person. We're going to be looking at an episode of Sherlock. Well, not a whole episode, a piece of an episode, learning some useful words and phrases from a section, a small section, a clip from Sherlock. And then if we have time, we're going to be going into the Duolingo English practice test. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're here live, or we're doing this live, so if we have any interesting questions, we may take a few minutes to answer those. We'll see how that goes. And let's see what else. If you haven't already done so, I would appreciate if you could hit the like button, subscribe to see future content. Hitting the like button is a simple way to tell the algorithms that, hey, this is interesting and useful. Other people should check it out too. That is very useful. Feel free to leave comments as well. Now, maybe you're listening to this later. Fine. Fantastic. I love that. I'm one of you. I listen to a lot of things rather than watching. I prefer to listen because my eyeballs like to look at other things besides screens sometimes. So feel free to show your support there. You can watch these on YouTube or Facebook. Just search Cloud English, and those watching, if you like to listen, check those out. Check out the links rather in the description. Let's see, is there anything else? Of course, there's the Discord that you're welcome to join. That is free. Mostly that's just a place to get updates and things I share if I put out a new course, or there's a new blog or something like that. You'll find that in the Discord. Of course, you can ask me questions there too. A lot of people privately message me on Discord to ask questions who have first been added to the group, which I find interesting. I think some people are a little shy to ask their questions in public, which, okay, fair enough. Let's see, what else? And if you want, you can get a free English course in the links in the description, and 30% off the monthly membership. That's a 12-month membership, and each month is 30% off the monthly price. So that is also in the links in the description. And I think that's about it for the top of the show business. I think we can get into our introductions. I might be checking the chat later, so those asking questions or they're making comments, if I don't get to that, well, I apologize. I sincerely, deeply, profoundly, profusely apologize. Okay, just a little sip of coffee there, and then we can, I think, get into it. Yeah, so introductions. Is introducing someone, whether it's a formal situation or a social situation, is introducing someone as simple as saying, "This is my friend. I'd like you to meet." It's not that simple. And in this little conversation, we're going to be talking about how you can do a real introduction. What do I mean by a real introduction? Well, what happens after you say, "This is my friend Stacy"? You know, what happens right after that? That's more important because you want it to flow into the conversation. You want to provide a spark that's going to maybe get someone to ask a question. You've made an introduction so that these two people can now, learn more about each other, hopefully get to know each other a little bit, right? Or at least have that opportunity. So if you just say the basic phrases that you hear, "I'd like you to meet." "I'd like you to meet my friend, Jan." Or a question, "Have you met? Have you met Alex? Have you met Alex?" Or the classic, "This is, hey everyone," it could be one person, could be a whole group. "Hey everyone, this is my old roommate from college, Dan." I had to come up with a name, so normally I wouldn't be so uncertain sounding. I didn't have a name at the top of my head, my brain when I was doing that group introduction. So yeah, that's about it. "I'd like you to meet." "Have you met?" as a question, and "this is." All right. So that's great. That's easy. That's straightforward. But does that work if we just do that? No. The answer is no. So now let's get into how we can add, let's say, details, right? And how we can make the introduction a little bit more interesting, how we could add some more, let's say, meat to it, so that when we introduce this person, other people have a thing to engage them with or on or about, right? So we provide a bit of context. Now, I did say, "This is my old college roommate." What name did I say? Was that Ted? I already forget. I have memory problems. What is going on with me? Whatever name I made up there, right? So, okay, there's a roommate thing, but I want to provide a little bit more. So let's start with a professional context. Okay, so let's say we're in a professional sort of scenario, a mixer, a meeting, a conference, a something, where people are meeting each other and I'm introducing someone. Great. "This is my colleague, Emma." So I walk up to two people and I know that there is a connection, but the other people don't know that there is. So think about that. When you're making an introduction, your role is to say out loud the context or connection that is relevant to everyone involved in order to lubricate the situation socially. And that's your job, to say that out loud, because you're the one who knows what the connection might be. Okay, so this is my colleague, Emma. She's a designer. Or I could say she's the designer who created that logo for the hiking brand I'd been telling you about. So maybe I know that we were talking about a logo design or whatever, and I mention one, and then I later introduce the person who designed that logo because that's the thing I mentioned before. So there's a link there. There's a connection there. They know what I'm talking about. They know about this logo for this hiking brand. And so when they are introduced to Emma, they might have a couple of questions. Oh, that I really like and they can make a comment there. "I really like the style," or maybe they can ask a question. "Okay, so I'm curious because we were talking about it about 10 minutes ago, right? What were some of your inspirations, or what are maybe some of the aesthetics you were using when you created the logo?" Maybe whatever. They can start now talking about it. There's a bit more context, okay? So when you're in a professional situation, actually there are more opportunities because there are so many of these little links, these things that are relevant to everyone involved, and all we have to do is kind of point those things out in the introduction. What about a personal context, not a professional one? Okay, so I just want to introduce my friend, right? And again, what I want to do is I want to identify something that I know everybody has in common. So I want to introduce my friend Lisa to my other friend who is an avid outdoorsman or outdoors person or hiker. They like to go, on long hikes. And I know this, and I also know that Lisa is a big-time hiker, and I'll use that phrase, big-time hiker. Have you met my friend Lisa? Now, often I know that this person or these people have not, but it can be a good way to introduce, right? Sometimes they will say, oh, yes, we talked 10 minutes ago. Oh, great. I'm glad you guys have been introduced. And then I might just sort of sneak away. But in most cases, I'm doing the introduction because I'm pretty sure they don't know each other. Okay? So have you met my friend Lisa? She's also a big-time hiker. So, again, I know that the people I'm introducing Lisa to are outdoorsy types. And so, okay, there's a hook, there's a context, there's a thing that they can now talk about. You've probably been to every trail in the state at this point, right, Lisa? So I might then ask Lisa a question so that Lisa starts talking. So this is a step further. Before I introduce the context of the logo design as a way to get the people I have introduced Emma to ask a question or make a comment. And now I'm asking the question to get Lisa to talk so that the conversation could get going even more naturally. Now, I might do the same thing with the people I introduced Lisa to. So I could say, you've probably been to every trail in the state, haven't you, Lisa? She would say, yes, I've been to most of them except for some of the big ones upstate, which I'm really hoping to check out. Or I might make a similar comment or ask a similar question to someone, one of the people or the person that I introduced her to, and it can go either way there. But again, the key is to give the context out loud so that there's something to grab onto. Okay, let's do another example. Frank, so here's Frank over there. I'd like you to meet my brother, Alex. And Alex, this is my cheese dealer, Frank. Remember that Gouda? Right? Maybe I know that Frank and my brother have a cheese thing in common, right? So I say, Frank, I'd like you to meet my brother. I know they haven't been introduced. My brother's name is Alex. Alex, this is my cheese dealer, Frank. Now that's weird, right? It's a strange thing to say, but okay, maybe it's true, right? Maybe this is the person I buy exotic cheeses from, right? Then I call to mind something that I want someone to remember. Remember that Gouda? It's a type of cheese. And then if that memory comes up, now we can start talking about it. Now there's a connection. Oh yeah, that made the party that we had 2 years ago. That absolutely made the party. He is the one who provided that, and now we can start talking about exotic cheeses or whatever. I mean, you can make it about anything. I'm using a silly example there, but you can really make your conversation starter about almost anything as long as it is relevant and appropriate to the situation, okay? So what about a social event where it's kind of a group and I want to introduce someone, Sam, to the whole group, okay? So I'll provide an interesting detail and maybe I'll make a little joke. So if it's a group, you want to sort of break the ice a little bit. You want to make it kind of a fun atmosphere. You might say something that's maybe not hilarious, but a little comment or a little joke. Everyone, so Sam arrives at this event or party or group or whatever, and I say, everyone, this is Sam. And people may or may not say, hi, Sam. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. She's here from Alaska. Okay, there's my context. I'm giving a little detail. And then I might make a little joke. And I think this might be her first time interacting with other humans. So please don't startle her. Now, is that hilarious? No, but it's a stupid joke that you might make in the moment to just lighten the mood a little bit and to say, oh, well, Alaska is a big place. There aren't a lot of people. So it's a joke that there aren't a lot of people in Alaska. Again, not that funny. What about introducing the roommate? This is my college roommate, Simon. And then I might make this sort of, again, humorous comment that's going to get people thinking, that's going to maybe get people to walk up and talk to this person, that's going to get them to ask a question. This is my roommate, Simon. Please don't ask him anything embarrassing I did in college. Please don't ask him about any embarrassing stories that happened when we were in college together. Well, that makes people immediately think, oh, well, that's the first thing I'm going to do, right? So once again, I'm providing a little thing that people can grab onto. And what you're doing is kind of creating this, it's like a welcome sign to say, hey, here's a way that you could interact with this person if you want to. And that is really the key to making a good introduction. It's not about the simple phrases. Those are very straightforward. It's about adding the context that's going to allow the conversation to naturally sort of flow and allow people to interact with each other, okay? So, next time you have an opportunity to introduce someone, try to do it this way. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and also get a free course, Natural English Conversations. That is in the links in the description. Okay, so hopefully that's straightforward. I find introductions are, a tricky thing for people, because if you just say, hey everyone, this is Sam, and you don't say anything else, it's very hard to interface with that person, right? Now it's a whole different thing, in Zoom calls. I think it's different. It's a bit different, but there are some similarities too. So anyway, it is getting very hot these days. It is June. The AC is on pretty much all the time now. And I know that July and August is going to be even more hot. And it just constantly wears on me. It makes me feel like I'm going to melt. I know a lot of people like summer, but I'm not a summer person. I like to go out in the evening in the summer when it's a bit more cool, but I'm not a big fan of being in the sun, in direct sunlight. It hurts my eyes. I get sunburned very easily. I don't enjoy it. I feel tired. I feel hot. My favorite season is late autumn and winter. I like winter, honestly. It might be my favorite season. Early autumn I don't like because I get allergies, quite serious seasonal allergies. But later in the autumn, when it's starting to get, crispy and crunchy and cold, that I like. And maybe the first few snows before it gets really depressing and bleak, I also like. And I feel more alive in the winter. Summer, some people say I feel so energetic in the summer. I don't. It's just the opposite of me. I cannot hack it. All right. Let's look at our episode of Sherlock here. I'm gonna put on my AirPod, not earpod, earbud, AirPod. Do people use the word earbud anymore? I feel like I don't hear it so much because I haven't been paying attention as well. So who knows? Okay. So let's take a look at some useful words and phrases from this clip from Sherlock. This is from is it Hound or Hounds of Baskervilles? The Hound of Baskerville. Baskerville or Baskervilles? Baskerville or Baskervilles? It's from the original story. I think it's Baskervilles. Anyway, I should know that, but let's look at words and phrases in context from this clip and focus on how we can use them. That's the most important, right? So listen carefully. Try to hone your listening skill as we go through this. Really catch what is being said, and then see if you can figure out, okay, if I were going to use it, how would I use it? Would I use it in a similar way, in a different way? Okay, well, let's get started.
Perfectly all right.
But maybe it's not a drug.
No, it has to be a drug. How did it get into our systems? How?
I'm not going to focus on this, but when you hear in our systems, that might sound weird at first. This is one way of talking about the body. You might say, I don't know if I'm getting enough nutrition in my system. System is kind of this broad term. You can talk about specific systems. You can say digestive systems. You can say cardiovascular system. You can say, did I say digestive system or systems? If it's one, it would be system. Digestive system, cardiovascular system. Sometimes when you're referring to then yourself, the whole thing, nervous system, cardiovascular system, digestive system, we will use systems. So my systems. And you'll also hear people say my system. Our systems, I'm not sure if he's referring to each person having systems or that it's multiple people who each have a system, and because it's multiple people, he's saying systems. Anyway, that's just a side point. Oops.
It has to be a drug. How did it get into our systems? How? There must be something buried deep.
Something buried deep. Buried deep where? In the ground? In your mind, in your memory, often. Buried deep would be maybe emotional trauma or something like that. It would be buried, that one, that memory was buried deep. And I haven't really thought of it in years. Then I heard that song and suddenly I remembered everything. The traumatic song.
Get out.
Okay, I want to talk about this. I know that you know what get out means, but what is the level of rudeness of the word get out? That's the interesting thing here, right? If you say to someone, get out, in this case, it does seem quite rude, right? He's pointing at this lady like he's almost swiping her out of the room, right? like she's an app icon. He's trying to get her out of the room. In this case, it does come across as very rude. If you look at someone directly and you want them to leave, you could say politely, I'd like to be alone, or something like that. I'd like to be alone right now. Okay, I'll give you some space. Or you could say, I'd like to have some space. But if you look at someone right in the eyes and you say, get out, that is going to be rude. Now, the reason I mention this is that it all depends on context, and it all depends on the way that you say it. So something means something, not just based on what it means in the dictionary, but also how it is used, right? So there could be a jokey way to say, get out, right? In which case someone may leave without being offended because they know you're the type of person who just says that sort of thing, and that's fine. But also, there is another meaning of get out, which we have talked about before, popularized in Seinfeld, when we have a sense of disbelief about something. If somebody says something shocking, we would say, get out. Short for get out of here. Get out of here. Meaning, I can't believe it. I won't accept it. It's too much to believe, right? So in this case, he's literally telling this person to leave the room. And in this case, it is rude. But that's kind of his thing, right? That's his MO.
What?
Get out. I need to go to my mind palace.
The what? He's not going to be doing much talking for a while. We may as well go.
Okay. We may as well. Did you hear that? We may as well go.
He's not going to be doing much talking for a while. We may as well go.
He's not going to be doing much talking for a while. We may as well go. We may as well. So what does it mean to say we may as well? This means doing the opposite is kind of pointless, right? Okay, so what does that mean? Well, he's trying to solve a problem, trying to figure out how some drugs got into their systems that caused them to hallucinate. And if he's going to be sifting through his mind palace, he's not going to be saying anything. And so what's the point of them just sitting there looking at him doing this, right? Yeah, good question. It would be kind of pointless. So if something is kind of pointless, then we may as well, something else, in this case, we may as well leave, right? So this is to say, whatever the opposite is, basically has no function, right? If it's, let's say we've been working on something very intensely, and we've worked on it basically all night, an all-nighter, working on something or studying for something or whatever, and it's 5 a.m., right? Well, you realize, oh, geez, 5 a.m. Okay, now, in this case, would there be a point in going to bed if maybe, let's say it's college students who've been, studying all night for a big exam? Is there any reason that they should go to sleep, for like 45 minutes and then get ready for class? No, it's kind of pointless to do that because they wouldn't get enough rest anyway. So, okay, basically now they're committing to staying up. And so what? We may as well stay up, you could say, or we may as well get breakfast. So we may as well get breakfast, basically saying, well, we've kind of committed to this, and the opposite has no point. What would be the point of going to bed at this point? Because it's, it's morning already, and we have class pretty soon. We have our exam pretty soon. We may as well get breakfast. Okay, let's keep going here.
His what? Oh, his... We'll go.
His what?
Oh, his mind palace. It's a...
His what?
Oh, his mind palace.
Okay. She says, his what? His what? Now this is different than you what? She what? So if you say she what? He what? And it's just the simple pronoun, right? Then we're talking about actions, right? He what means he did what? I want to know more about this. I'm shocked, right? You what? You did something that I can't believe, and I'm questioning you about what you did. But if it is a possessive pronoun, your what? Your what? His what? Now my what? Maybe. I don't know if that would work. Yeah, I guess it could work in some situations. So in this case, his what is talking about a thing that he has that is equally unbelievable, right? It's hard to believe. It's strange, or perhaps I just don't know what that is, and I'm kind of confused. So if I want to express again surprise or confusion, or I just want to get clarification on something, and somebody said that, but I don't really know what it means, I might say, your what? His what? Or perhaps the what? The what? You say something. I don't know what that is. The what? And then I want you to say it again, and then also hopefully tell me more about it. Explain it to me. So this is his mind palace. This is where he stores all of the information. He can go in there and look around and find what he needs. Oh, he's going to his mind palace. His what? Now, maybe she knows what a mind palace is and she can't believe that he has one because that's such a strange thing to have. Oh, I have one too. Or maybe she has never heard of that and she wants to hear it again for clarification, and she might need an explanation, right? And she's about to get that, right?
It's a memory technique, a sort of mental map.
It's a memory technique. It's a mental map, which is accurate.
It's a map with a location. It doesn't have to be a real place, and then you deposit memories there.
It's actually a pretty good explanation of what a mind palace, or also called a more commonly memory palace, is. Basically a physical place. You deposit things there, and they act as, for example, mnemonics to remind you of what a word or some important bit of information or a date or something, or could be an object, a visual object that you create with your imagination. When you walk through that mental space in your memory palace, you see it. It's actually a very powerful technique. It's been around for thousands of years.
It'll be a real place, and then you deposit memories there.
You deposit, in this case, memories. It doesn't have to be memories. Could be all kinds of things. Vocabulary words, for example. Deposit. Okay, you might think of deposit like at a bank. Yeah. One meaning of deposit, or the main meaning of deposit, is to put something in something else. Right? To deposit money in the bank is to take your money and put it in the bank. So you can deposit other things too. You might have a mineral deposit somewhere, or next to your sink, right? There's a small mineral deposit there. Some minerals have built up. Okay, so that's minerals that are there. Not that you put them there, but they have built up gradually. To deposit as a verb is to, again, put something there. So in this case, the memory or the word in your memory or mind palace is deposited into your memory or mind palace. Okay, put there, put in place, usually with intention. That is often how it is used. And we have, I forgot to put that up. Deposit. Deposit can also, by the way, be a noun. The noun deposit is then once you deposit the money in the bank, that thing that you did is now a deposit. Okay, so I made a deposit. I need to go to the bank to make a deposit, or to deposit money. It can be used as a noun or as a verb. And as I mentioned, the mineral deposit, that deposit there, that is a noun. Okay?
Theoretically, you can never forget anything. All you have to do is find your way back to it.
So this imaginary location could be anything, a house or a street?
Yeah.
This is a palace, he said.
House or a street.
Be anything, a house or a street?
Yeah.
This is a palace, he said it was a palace.
Yeah, well, he would, wouldn't he?
Okay, let's talk about this last piece here. This is the last one we're going to talk about. Yeah, well, he would, wouldn't he? Oh, this should be he would, wouldn't he? Apologies. He would, wouldn't he? Let me update that. So, what does this mean? He would, wouldn't he? Is it a real question? Is it a rhetorical question? And what the heck does it mean? How is it used in this case? So it's actually kind of subtle. So let's talk about this a little bit. So actually, it's just called a memory palace or a mind palace. So that's the real reason, right? But in this case, there's a comment being made about how pretentious Sherlock is, right? How his personality type is kind of arrogant, right? He doesn't have a lot of humility in the way that he communicates, right? He's definitely not down to earth. And so ordinary things would be houses or streets, and you could easily place your memories there. In this case, John Watson is explaining to this lady, I can't remember her name, that it's a palace, and she wonders, why does it have to be a palace? This opulent structure, this building, that's got all types of filigree and ornate designs and gold. It's opulent, right? Like Buckingham Palace. Why would he say, well, he would, wouldn't he? It's to sort of acknowledge the personality type. This is the kind of person. So this is like saying, well, that's typical for him, basically, right? If you want to make a somewhat sarcastic remark about someone, to say that's the way it is. It could be about any type of personality characteristic. It could be about someone's arrogance. In this case, it could be about someone's sort of humility. It could be about someone's desire to help everyone in all possible cases, right? Oh yeah, he drove 300 miles just to pick up KFC for his friend who said he couldn't leave the house. Yeah, well, he would, wouldn't he? That's like saying, oh, that's just the way he is. This person who will go to extreme lengths to make sure that his close friend is, getting exactly what he needs because he's just that thoughtful. Are you making fun of them? Nah, possibly. It's possible that you're making fun of them. But I see it more as a confirmation of, that's just the type of person that he or she is. Or they are, if you're talking about a group. That's just how they are. Well, they would, wouldn't they? Right? So there's a bit of sarcasm in there. It's sort of layered into it, but it's kind of a nuanced comment, and that's what I think is particularly interesting about that one. So we've talked about get out. We've talked about we may as well. We said his what, your what, their what. We talked about deposit, and he would, wouldn't he? They would, wouldn't they? So if you have any questions about these, let me know. Try to use them in your daily life. Using words and phrases that you learn, especially learning them in context, is the best way to remember them, perhaps apart from putting them in your own memory palace, which is something worth considering, absolutely. So if you have any questions about these, let me know. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And also get a free course, Natural English Conversations, in the links in the description. All right. Back to the thing. I haven't watched Sherlock in quite a while, but going through this clip makes me want to watch it again. I remember the last season. I don't remember if it's season 3. I think it's season 3. I didn't particularly enjoy it, and it kind of gave me a bad impression of the whole thing. But actually, I remember the first 2 seasons being really good, really well written. Maybe a little bit, well, actually, I don't know how I would feel about it now. Things change as you get older. So I would have watched these, I don't know, whenever they came out, like 10 years ago. And so I wonder how I would feel about them now as a different person who's 10 years older. I've often had that experience where I think I like something. And I tell other people that I like it. But I've been saying it for a while. And then I find myself revisiting it for one reason or another. And then I realize that what I thought I liked is actually just a repetition of an opinion that I used to have, and that actual opinion no longer exists. So it's a shell of an opinion. It is like an opinion object on a shelf, and it's getting a little dusty. And when I actually have to go back and check and see if it's really there, I find, oh, it's not really there anymore. I actually don't like this movie at all anymore. That was terrible. Some things stand up over time. I recently rewatched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I feel that the Lord of the Rings trilogy stands up. Even though some of the CGI looks somewhat dated, I feel like the whole trilogy, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson trilogy, stands up very well. And also the original Matrix, the first Matrix movie. Again, some things, look grainy. There are things that don't quite work, but overall, I think it stands up quite well. It is actually a really good movie. Worth a rewatch. Same with most of the Harry Potter movies. I feel like I've rewatched those quite a few times, and I still like those. Okay. It reminds me actually of something I've been reading recently. So recently I've been reading this book by Jean Piaget called The Psychology of the Child. I'm trying to learn about child psychology because my son is going to be born pretty soon, in about a month and a half. And so I want to understand how babies' brains work and develop. In this book, Jean Piaget talks about the 4 stages of development. There's basically you're working toward an operational stage. You're actually able to basically handle life, right? But as you work through the 4 stages, you're constantly you're constantly confronting problems. And the problems that you confront as you go through these stages is kind of what gets you through them. But then on sort of baked into this is this interesting idea called, the first part is called assimilation. And then basically, and the second part is called accommodation. So assimilation is when you have a framework, or let's say a belief system or something that's kind of in your mind. We could call it a mindset if you like. And this framework, as Piaget sort of says it, is like a map that helps you navigate the world. And you need to be able to fit new information as it comes into this in order to continue to successfully, get around, handle things without getting overwhelmed, right? So let's say something as simple as the Santa Claus thing. Some children believe in Santa Claus, and the whole sort of system around Santa Claus could be like a framework of behavior, how to behave, right? You behave well, and Santa Claus gives you gifts, and you get good gifts the better you are, and if you don't behave well, then you're on Santa's naughty list. I didn't grow up believing in Santa Claus, but we could state this as a general sort of framework that a little child might have. So what they're doing when they are sort of coming up against new situations, they might then take, this is a new situation. Should I share the lollipop or not share the lollipop? This is a new situation that they're encountering. How do they take that and fit it into an existing system or framework? The Santa Claus one, in this case. Okay, well, if I share, that would be good, maybe. I'm just trying to put myself in the mind of a little kid. If I share, that would be good, and Santa Claus will like that, and so I might get, the Tonka truck that I want. If I don't share, that's selfish. I might put me on Santa's naughty list. So you're assimilating new information into an existing framework. But as you grow up, eventually, and I hate to break this to you if you haven't come to this sort of realization yet, but Santa Claus probably doesn't actually exist. Who knows? Who am I to say? But most kids, as they grow up, if they believed in Santa Claus eventually, they give it up. And so that process of giving it up could, in theory, probably not for Santa, but could, in theory, cause major problems, right? Emotional problems as the world starts to disagree with this core belief that you have, you're unable to change, then there's this crazy tension, and that's not healthy for your, let's say, emotional stability or your ability to sort of deal with the world, right? And so what do you do? Well, if you continue to persist to say, no, the whole Santa Claus thing is totally real, and you're making decisions well into your 30s in the Santa Claus framework, you're probably not going to get very far in a career, in a marriage, or whatever. But if you are able to essentially adapt and change the framework, then once again you can build a new system, and that new system will help you hopefully navigate the world better. So think of that like a snake shedding its skin. When a snake sloughs its skin, it's because the snake is growing. So you as a person are growing. It's okay, the Santa Claus thing, it's not working anymore as I mature and develop and experience more of the world. But maybe there's a new way of thinking that will help me make decisions about what's right or wrong, whether to share something or not share something. And that is me accommodating the world, the impositions of the world, as I mature as a person. I find this very fascinating. It's a really interesting way of thinking about how we mature, how we grow, how we acclimate to adulthood as we go through different stages of life. And it just reminds me of that opinion of, I like this movie. Well, wait a minute. Actually, I don't. So it's worth, I think, going back through the shelves, dusting things off and looking at them, because you might find a new way of thinking that's going to make you better capable of getting stuff done, collaborating with others. It might make you more curious. You know, it's food for thought. Dinesh says, Luke, do you remember making a video about how to describe fear? That was a really totally immersive experience for us. Yes, I do seem to remember I made a video in Central Park with my brother, and it was a long, long time ago. And it was kind of like a short film, different style than most of my videos, but yeah, check that out. I think it's called, let me see, Describing Fear, maybe? Maybe not. Fear? I'm just searching here. It's called How to Describe Fear in English. Yeah. How to Describe Fear in English. I don't think the video did particularly well, because it's a totally different style from my typical videos. But yeah, thanks for calling that out. Interesting that that you saw that. I didn't think anyone saw it, but I was wrong. All right, let's talk about elevator conversations, because that's interesting. Again, those joining, thank you for doing so. If you haven't already done so, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe. That would be most helpful. You can also join the Discord. That is free. Free course, Natural English Conversations, and the monthly membership where you can access my courses is 30% off for 12 months. So grab that. Also in the links in the description. The ChatGPT writing course is doing pretty well. It's doing very well. A lot of people are apparently enjoying that. The reviews have been good so far. I think it's around 4.8 out of 5 on Udemy. Currently, that course is on Udemy. So feel free to check that out too. That course is all about writing with ChatGPT, improving your writing skills. Okay, so let's talk about how to have an elevator conversation, which I think is a very interesting topic, because, well, it's not something that you have to do often, but when you do, it can be really awkward. And it's good to know how to handle it, and also the ways that we can handle it kind of help us navigate other social situations where we're talking with people that we don't know usually. You know, how do you interact with a stranger if you're not really interested in having a full conversation with them, right? So let's talk about that. I'm going to hop over here to the Blackboard. So, how do we respond if we're in the elevator, this small, awkward space, and someone says something? How dare they, first of all? How dare they? Somebody says something. How can we respond in a way that, well, allows us to maybe avoid further awkwardness, right? Or if we want to start a conversation if you really want to. How can we do that in a natural way? It's tricky. It's not particularly easy, right? That's what we're going to spend a bit of time talking about. So first, let's talk about responding. What if someone, okay, you're in an elevator, set the scene. Someone says, and by the way, I did ask ChatGPT to help me with some visualizations here, so we'll take a look at a few of those. Here's what I would love for you to guess how the prompt that I use to get this image. Everyone looks very awkward in this situation. Okay, so you're in your apartment building. It's a big apartment building, and you don't know most people there, and you know you're in the building. You're going down to the ground floor, and someone in the elevator. It's one other person. They're the type of person they like to make comments. I think some people are very uncomfortable with silence, so they might say something. I'm personally very comfortable with silence. I'm happy to sit on the elevator. Well, stand on the elevator. And in the elevator, not on the elevator. What am I saying? I'm happy to stand in the elevator and say nothing. Very, very happy to do that. Okay, but someone is not comfortable with silence and they say, This snowstorm we're getting tonight is no joke. That means it's going to be very serious. Okay, so this is a weather-related comment. How can we deal with this? How can we handle this? Well, you might make a simple remark, and we'll talk about what that means if you make a very simple comment, but a few things you might say. So I've heard. It's a very sort of conversational, friendly sounding, but simple way to say, yeah, I know. But it's not rude. It's friendly. It's a little comment. What it doesn't do is continue the conversation, right? Now, you might add a little more detail. So they said there's a big snowstorm coming, and I add to that, biggest one of the year, apparently. So if I just say, so I've heard, the feeling of that is going to be something like, I know. Yep. And the connotation is I don't really want to have a further conversation. So it's a way to just say, interesting. But if you just say, like that could be awkward. That could be perceived as rude, right? Now, if you say biggest one of the year, apparently, then you're adding a little bit. Now, this might show, okay, let's do it. If you've got more to say, I'm here. Got nothing else to do. I'm just staring at the elevator doors. So, okay. You might say, again, to add, right? I'm ready to do some shoveling. So again, it's just a comment. Does it mean anything? Yeah, it does mean something, but it doesn't mean much. It's basically saying, I heard what you said and I have been thinking about this as well. That's basically it, right? Now, again, similar to so I've heard, but just a one word or very quick comment would be absolutely. Yeah. That you can say to almost anything. So it might be perceived as say something to get it over with. Absolutely would be a good one. Can't wait might sound or might come across as somewhat sarcastic, and that would be okay as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong necessarily with being sarcastic. Okay. Now, what if you really want to engage? What if you want to have a legitimate conversation in this 45-second elevator ride? Okay. Ask a question, a simple one. You don't say, well, does the snowstorm make you reflect on any major life decisions? Don't say anything like that. Keep it simple. Think they'll close the schools? It's highly contextual, right? It's related to the snowstorm. So you want to keep it context-driven. You want to keep it relevant to what is actually being said. Now, notice I'm saying, think they'll close the schools instead of do you think? That just sounds a little bit more casual, and some people like to do that. I like to use think instead of do you think, or want some instead of do you want some. It just sounds a little bit more, friendly, a little bit more casual. What time is it supposed to hit? Now that is the storm. When is it going to arrive? That is getting the other person to provide more information. They may know, they may not know, but I want to know more information. Maybe I'll say, is it supposed to snow all night? I'm assuming they brought it up because they want to talk about it some more. I'm assuming they brought it up because they have some thoughts about it and they want to share those thoughts. So I'm now giving them an opportunity by asking a question directly about what's happening. Think they'll close the schools? Is it supposed to snow all night? Maybe I want to know the answer. Maybe not. Okay? So this is how we would handle, basically, when someone makes a comment or initiates a conversation. And again, we're talking about in the elevator, but it could be for other simple conversations as well, at a bus stop or something like that. Let's see. This one is so weird. Okay, so I searched, I did a prompt in Midjourney, and this is what I got. You would have thought that I might have said something like, Pixar style skin peanut. I mean, this man in the elevator who looks like a peanut with shoes, but is made of skin and has hair buttons. You would have thought that I created a prompt for that, but I didn't. I think I just said Pixar style awkward elevator conversation, and this is what I got. Deeply, deeply disturbing. I don't know what it is, and it gave me nightmares last night. Now, what if you want to start the conversation in the elevator? Okay, I don't know why. Some people like to do it. Who am I to criticize? I don't get it personally. I don't think I've ever started an elevator conversation. But again, that's my style. That is my personality type. That is the kind of person I am. I am perfectly happy to stare at the elevator doors. Not necessarily like this creepy skin peanut, but something like it, I suppose. So, if you want to start a conversation, how would you do it? Let's get into that. Let's talk about how we would do that. You might make a comment like the person did with the snowstorm, right? I recommend strongly keeping it context specific. What that means is you note things that you may have in common with this person. You also want to consider, are you both working in this building? Do you both work for the same company? Do you both live in this building? Do you both maybe